have some questions to ask you about science today.
Okay.
Do you know what schizophrenia is?
Schizophrenia?
Kinda.
No.
No? Well, it's an abnormality in the brain. And it causes people to see things and hear things that aren't really there. Yeah, sometimes it's hard for them to concentrate on things, or when they talk, they just have a very blank expression. Would you know what would cause this abnormality in the brain?
Smaller brains.
Right? I wish it was that simple. But it's really because of a chemical imbalance in the brain.
Like a science experiment?
Yes, but in your brain.
Oh. And do you know how the brain works?
I know that it has a lot of nerves.
It does, yes. And do you know how these nerves in your brain communicate with one another?
Oh, no, I don't know that.
Okay, so your brain has these cells that communicate with each other using chemical messengers called neurotransmitters. Yeah, this happens when you're doing a lot of daily things such as learning new things, expressing your emotions, and forming memories.
Oh, so how do these chemicals transport information?
Well, in your brain, these cells send chemical messengers to the next cell, releasing neurotransmitters. And then this cell can communicate to this cell with neurotransmitters, and then that can communicate with that cell. Now, do you know how many types of neurotransmitters there are?
Like millions?
Well, we only know of a few, but the one we do know about is glutamate, and that is one of the most common neurotransmitters in your brain.
Glutamate. So what does glutamate do?
Well, glutamate is one of these neurotransmitters that is released in between these cells, and this happens every time you're learning, every time you're making new memories, or expressing your emotions.
Oh, what happens if you don't have any glutamate?
Well, if you don't have any glutamate, then you start to have a difficult time in learning, harder time in making new memories, and a harder time in expressing your emotions. And this is what causes a chemical imbalance in the brain. Do you know what that is?
I'm guessing that it's because the nerves aren't working well because there aren't enough neurotransmitters?
You got it, yeah. Not enough glutamate is being sent between these cells, and that's why it's harder to do these things. This can lead to a disease, for example, like schizophrenia.
Ah, I heard that one before.
Yeah, you got it.
So, do you know what schizophrenia is?
Yeah, I learned that it's a disease that's caused by high levels of dopamine in your brain.
Right. Since 1915, they thought that dopamine causes schizophrenia. But later on, they realized that patients that have schizophrenia do not have different dopamine levels compared to normal patients.
Huh. So, if dopamine's not the problem, then what is?
So there's another neurotransmitter called glutamate.
Oh.
In a nerve network, when a nerve releases glutamate, it stimulates another nerve to release dopamine. So scientists thought that if dopamine isn't the cause of schizophrenia, maybe something earlier on in the nerve network may cause schizophrenia.
So glutamate is the problem.
Well, this is what we know. When a nerve releases glutamate, it binds to NMDA receptors on the following nerves. The dopamine hypothesis thought that an excess of dopamine is what causes schizophrenia, but unlike that, the glutamate hypothesis thinks that it's both an excess and deficiency. The excess of glutamate in some regions of the brain may cause hallucinations and causes people to see things or hear things that aren't there, but the deficiency in some regions causes a lack of working memory or a lack of concentration that is also symptoms in schizophrenia.
Wow, so the brain is really complex.
Yeah, that it is.